this. This is the review show portion, or the review show. So this week we're going to be talking about reviewing 5 movies, or giving cinematic evaluations to 5 movies. I am your host, Jeff Galashaw at Unfinished B2. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Andre Joseph.
SHAZAM!
Yes, we will be talking about that as one of our movies. But first, let us talk about a more recent film, Super Mario Brothers, the movie. No, not the Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo version, but the animated version with the voices of Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, Jack Black as Bowser, Chris Pratt as Mario, and Charlie Day as Luigi, amongst others. I know a lot of people are disappointed in this movie because they expected it to be more for them as adults. They wanted it to be more meta. They're sort of like the Lego movie, or more fun like that. And watching this movie, we basically get the movie everybody wanted in 1993, an animated version that sticks pretty close to the video game while having a sense of humor of its own. But I think what most people don't or fail to realize is that this is more made for kids. This isn't made for those adult fans who feel gypped by the live action. And I, for one, will say I actually enjoyed this movie more than I expected to, because I was going in with hearing all this bad word of mouth, and I was pleasantly entertained. I had fun with the film and the premise, and again, I guess I didn't take it that seriously, so that's why I enjoyed the film. And
yeah, I don't know where there's bad buzz about it. I mean, I know there were mixed reviews from the critics, and but I can't say that there were people I know that thought, oh, they expected more. They thought it was going to be more for them. I'll tell you right now, from beginning to end, I was smiling throughout that entire movie, from the time the Nintendo logo came up to the very end with the credits. I mean, this film had, what more could you really ask for something that's Super Mario Bros. Compared to what we got in 1993, which was trash. I mean, they had the music, they had all these characters, all these Easter eggs. They took a very simplistic story and they found some ways to, make it interesting enough to, be able to have that story be expanded out for 90 minutes. And, forget about Chris Pratt playing the voice of Mario. After a while, I kind of forgot about it. It just, you bought into who they were. And if you knew the games, you knew the levels, you knew the music, you knew all these characters that were coming in, and they made sure there were even references to other Nintendo games, clearly indicating they're going to do a universe building thing with Zelda and Metroid and Star Fox at some point down the line. But this was absolutely, I mean, until there's more films that come out later this year, this is definitely on top in my top 5 of my favorites, because it's just, it really hit me as somebody that grew up with the games, that grew up with a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo and a Game Boy. And just, I would highly recommend it, whether you have children or if you're just like me, you're almost 40 or you're in your 50s and you remember those days and you just have a good time at the theaters. And that's really what this film is. There's no political agenda or anything like that. It is just Mario Brothers.
Well, I mean, I like it because, I'm also, if I'm going to play any video games, it's probably going to be old school video games like Mario Brothers, Zelda, Tetris, stuff like that. So I enjoyed it on that level. And like you said, it's fun and it makes you feel good. You're never really quite worried, throughout. You just want to see where it goes and what it's going to reference. And, obviously plenty of Donkey Kong references. But like I said, I really enjoy it. I would definitely highly recommend it for people who remember Super Mario Brothers or were interested in seeing this. I say go for it. I mean, you still have your diehards who love the live action film. But, I I'm not gonna say I never really watched it from beginning to end, so I can't comment on it. But I enjoyed this animated version of the movie. Okay, so after that, we move on to our next film, which also came out this year. It is a little film called Ant-Man and the Wasp: QUANTUMANIA, the third in the Ant-Man trilogy. It follows Ant-Man into the quantum realm once again, and in the return, trying to get his family back together, and also coming against an old friend or enemy in the form of MODOK, who is working for Jonathan Majors Kang in this movie. And, this strangely, this is a film that feels rushed for a movie that's supposed to I guess, pump up the Phase 5 villain. And considering this one kind of goes out like a punk, and they have to give us this after story of spoiler alert. There's multiple versions of him to go around, so interesting to see how that's going to play out. But one of the things that did not help this movie is I hated his Ant-Man's daughter throughout. She caused all this, and she doesn't make anything any better. Evangeline Lilly really has nothing to do but be backup. It's Michael Douglas seems stoned throughout the movie. Michelle Pfeiffer keeps hinting that she had sexual needs, and the only person instead of a young muscular Jonathan Majors was Bill Murray, who is trying to go for Jeff Goldblum in the funny cameo department, but unfortunately falls very short. Just general, all the aliens or life forms in the quantum just seem like makeup artists was throwing things against the wall to see what worked. The MODOK, everything everybody says about that special effect is horrible, and then having it be the villain from the first film. And the thing that hurts the most, what happened to his crew? Ant-Man's crew. They totally sit this one out, and that was part of the enjoyment of the first two films. I mean, I can live without T.I., but no Michael Pena. It's like, what the hell? And, and I don't know why Jonathan Majors plays his villain like he's in a Shakespearean play. With the pauses in the way he speaks throughout the movie. It's just like, okay, it's just a failure on so many fronts that you would expect this from maybe a first film, not the third in the series. And it just feels like they really had nothing, but they knew they had to make a movie. I mean, I'll give it to them. It's a villain better than part 2, which really didn't have a villain all that much. So I'll give it that, even though I really kind of wish the hot girl from part 2 came back. But that's neither here nor there. That has nothing to do with this. So, but like I said, it was just a general disappointment. What I felt like when I saw the trailer, and then what basically most people were saying when it came out. I'm glad I waited for Disney Plus to finally watch it, because I've never recently sat through a movie where I was so pissed off at watching the movie. What are your feelings on Ant-Man and Wasp: QUANTUMANIA?
Okay, let me preface this by saying I'm not going to get too much into Jonathan Majors because we know the guy is in a lot of trouble right now. Okay. And we don't know what his future is going to be as Kang the Conqueror in the Marvel Universe. I'll say I don't think it was flat out terrible. It was, I would say it's mildly entertaining for what it was. Now, that being said, that there are a lot of problems with this movie. Okay. Whoever compared it as a Spy Kids movie is absolutely correct. It's too colorful. It's too overloaded with CG to the point where you could really tell, like, they were doing Wakanda Forever at the same time, and they said, we're putting all our money in Wakanda Forever. This will be like the afterthought. This will just be like an appetizer. and you got the appetizer, and it was just complete crap. It was just not. It didn't look that good. Like they really, like you said, they rushed to get this together. King the Conqueror, really good villain, but the wrong movie to have him set up in. If you were gonna, obviously, the whole thing was Avengers, Kang Dynasty is coming up. That's probably where you would have set him up, or maybe Fantastic Four, or something else before that. This was not the movie to do it. Not having your big bad against a C-level Marvel hero in Ant-Man, it just doesn't play. And also, too, Ant-Man works better when they go with like a heist movie element. Like in the first film, they were taking from Ocean's 11 and The Hot Rock and, these kind of blue collar type of heist movies. But now you're trying to make it like Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm sorry, but not everybody can be James Gunn. Not everybody can balance the humor and the drama of a Marvel movie as well as he does. Which leads me to, I think, the biggest problem. And it's not MODOK. It's not anybody necessarily to cast. And it's not even Bill Murray. It is the simple fact that Kevin Feige just has a hard-on for hiring people from Rick and Morty to write his movies all of a sudden. Like he thinks there are these visionary, creative minds that they can write a Marvel film. And it's like, dude, these are jokesters. These are people who write jokes. They don't know screenplay structure. They don't know how to tell a story. And because of that, you end up with a movie that's just mildly entertaining. And that is why you hear these rumors that the guy that wrote this film, who was also originally supposed to be writing the Kang Dynasty, is probably going to be kicked off the Kang Dynasty because they need to get established people to handle this shit. It's just this was a clear wake-up call for Marvel right now to understand that you can't be cutesy at every turn. The formula is starting to get stale. You need to shake things up. This is why it's good that they're doing Deadpool 3 and they're going to start maybe getting a little bit more darker and gritty, but you got to do it now because you're already starting to see that, okay, Guardians 3, which we'll talk about, proved maybe the fatigue thing isn't real. But you do have a problem with who you're hiring to do these films. And you got to step back and you got to let the adults get back into the room because the children you're getting from Rick and Morty are not doing the job and they're diluting your product.
Well, I mean, you can especially feel it when you're dealing with like the rebellion warriors, and like I think William Harper, the psychic character, you can really feel the Rick and Morty vibes with him. Right. And that goo thing, I just feel like Paul Rudd deserves better. Again, like I said, it works better when he's working with his crew. T.I. David Dasmuchen,
who actually is in the movie but playing a different character.
Yeah, and it's like, why would you like waste him like that? And then you have no Michael Pena. Come on, even just for like maybe an after credit sequence. Even the after credit sequence is dumb. I mean, it's meant to set up everything. I just think that, like you said, I think Kevin Feige just doesn't want to look for any sci-fi writers. So he's like, hey, these guys write sci-fi on Rick and Morty. Why don't I get them? And I'm just like, why? We're like the Big Bang Theory writers busy? And, that's what it feels like. Because I'm like, you can make a film with a strong story structure, have the science make sense, and it have a little humor. I think that was the problem with this film also, is that they focus more a little on the humor side, a little bit too much, even though it worked in the other films. I mean, in the second film, it was because, well, we really have no villain. But, in the first film, like you said, there was a heist element. So here, it seemed like, again, just like the second film, we really don't have anywhere to go, but we need to make a sequel. But at least Ant-Man 2 felt fun. This just felt like you said, it felt stupid, derivative, like we're throwing things against the wall to set up this villain. And maybe they thought, since he's a Rick and Morty writer, and again, since this is more of a sci-fi phase, maybe that's why we'll just have him write all these movies. And with a hatred of this movie and bombing of it, I guess they realized, no, we have to actually bring in somebody who knows more what they're doing. Because it's, again, like the fact you always like to bring up about Seal. If you bring in writers who don't know what they're doing, this is what you get.
And I just think this was also proof that Kevin Feige is spread way too thin at Marvel right now. It was easy enough in those initial 3 phases when you only have to focus on 2, maybe 3 movies a year at most, right? And then you're developing the next set of films over time, and you can micromanage the filmmakers, the actors, and, make sure that the story connects and you build to something with a good payoff. But now it's too many movies, too many of the Disney Plus shows. And in a lot of ways, this felt like it could have just been a Disney Plus special as opposed to a theatrical film.
True.
And because of that, because it seems like there's a lack of quality control, this is the end result. You got to have the quality control again, or at least appoint somebody that you can trust to really, curb his worst instincts and say, look, this is not working. We got to pull back. We got to get back to what made these films successful to begin with. Because if you go back to those early Marvel films, it was not this over the top silly. They had it pretty well managed. It was more like the first Superman where the humor was tongue in cheek. But now we just want to make it sloppy like a bad Jim Carrey movie. I got to show MODOK's ass. What's the point in that? That's not going to generate a laugh. It's just going to be no, you're just being fucking stupid right now. So that's what they got to do right now. They got to get the adults back in the room at Marvel.
Well, I'm just wondering, is this going to be like kind of a Divergent thing where it's like, it was so bad, we totally have to redo everything that we thought, plus with, Jonathan Major's legal troubles,
Well, yeah, there's going to have to be some course correction at this point, whether he gets recast or not. I mean, Kang's there for the long run for now, but with the way things are going, maybe you start thinking about, can we bring in Doctor Doom sooner? Can we start building to Galactus? You have a lot of characters we haven't brought in yet that could be huge for this phase right now if you're going to fix.
Or, I mean, you can recast, because remember, there's multiple versions of it.
Right. And that's why you're hearing the rumors maybe Damson Idris from Snowfall might be a potential replacement. And I would certainly be highly recommending that because he is an amazing actor.
Well, I would have recommended an actor from our next film, actually, because he was a memorable villain, but the whole movie is memorable. We are, of course, talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I will go on to say, as you praise Super Mario Brothers, is so far in my top 5 movies of the year. It might not be the top. It might be number 2. It's fighting with another film. And interestingly enough, a film we'll talk about later. It ain't Shazam. But I loved this movie. I think it's I love all 3 of the movies. Maybe the first one, it has a little special notch in my heart because it's the beginning and being introduced to all these characters. But I have to say the follow through might be the best with this film because it's a throwback because we see people from the first film, villains from the first film, used in this movie. It's such a grand scale. It deals with dealing with a little bit of wokeness with the evolutionary and why does it need to be changed, except that you didn't like it or you didn't fit in. And I haven't liked a villain this much since Jason Isaacs in The Patriot, which we talked about on another episode. I love the guy who played the High Evolutionary. I wished he would have played Kang. That's how much I love him. So I could look forward to him being in much more of these movies. And a spoiler, even when we see the gruesome after effect, which was to me the strongest element in this movie. Whoa, was not prepared for that. I'm like, when did we go into horror movie territory? It's like Skeletor, but with some skin left. It's, say what you want about Chris Pratt personally. He hit it out of the ballpark with his Peter Quill in this movie. What's his Bradley Cooper, who I know I can be critical of. Great voice work, and since his character's kind of really the main character of this movie. Karen Gillan as Nebula.
She really shines here.
Yeah, I didn't even mind Zoe Saldana coming back, as kind of a different version of her character who, ends up helping in the end, kind of struggling. I liked, you know, Sylvester Stallone cameoing again. I like I like all the little Linda Cardellini, Nathan Fillion, um, James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn, playing, the inheritor of the Arrow. That
Jay Batista.
yeah, that might have been the only annoying part of the film. Him and Cosmo's little storyline that felt a little stupid, but has its payoff. Um, I there's very little I didn't like about this, and the whole camaraderie thing. The little weird children who speak whatever that language is. Um, Adam Warlock was okay.
I got something to say about Warlock, but go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but it was needed for the character and that ending that they had. I'm looking forward to it, though. As always with that weird comedy ending. Again, spoiler alert. When Quill's with his grandfather eating cereal and talking, it was like, okay, like I sat here for this, you know. But like I said, I generally don't have too much bad to say about the movie, other than why does James Gunn keep making all the alien women hot? It's just like there's no even like the high evolutionaries assistants are like I'm like they're cute watching this movie. I feel like I'm Captain Kirk. I'm just like, why are all these alien women so hot? That is my review. Highly recommend in theaters. Definitely go see this in theater or the biggest screen you can find. And
so when I went to see this movie, I'll be honest, I went in with pretty low expectations because I was so burned from Quantumania. I thought maybe the fatigue was real for Marvel, but I was pleasantly surprised how much I ended up enjoying it. I thought, like you said, this was Rocket Raccoon's story and probably the most emotional of the three. I thought the whole stuff with Kurt Russell in the second movie and the intensity of that whole twist with Ego was insane enough. But here, to see like Rocket's origin, to see like all the friends he made under the being held captive by the High Evolutionary, and what the High Evolutionary does to his friends, and how fucked up that was. Like, for the first time in a long time, we had a villain that I love to hate, that I literally wanted to see Rocket beat the fucking shit out of him because it just made me so angry. And so when he did get his comeuppance, I was applauding in the theater. Like, I was so happy to see that because there was something like I don't know, like an animal rights thing going on here that maybe was sort of the theme of the movie. But yeah, the magic was still all there. The chemistry with the whole group, Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana. Obviously, their dynamic had to be different because this is a different Gamora, not the one from the previous two. And Cara Gillian, like I said, she shines maybe more than the previous appearances she made as Nebula. Batista was great. The stuff like in the alternate Earth that they went to was really funny. You had your first F-bomb that wasn't like overly done either. It was kind of like natural the way that played out. And I kind of saw some of the jokes in my way, like the RoboCop thing I knew they were going to do. There's going to be, with the way the High Evolutionary's face was shaped and his face melting on him, I said, there's going to be a RoboCop reference somewhere, and they did it. So James Gunn is a very smart man in that regard. If I have two issues with it, believe it or not, I don't think this movie is woke, like you said. I actually didn't think it was like, oh, the girls are going to take over. They didn't do anything like that here. I think it's as woke as it got was maybe the animal rights stuff, which was fine. And I do wish there was more Howard the Duck, as usual, but maybe he'll get a Disney Plus show. We'll see. The only two things that I didn't like about it, and I was glad to see Yondu come back. Warlock, I thought, was a letdown. And it's not Will Poulter's fault. I thought he was cast fine in the part. but the Warlock in the comic books was a badass. Like, he really was significant with the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And here they just made him a joke. And I didn't really like that. Just the way he kind of got pushed to the side and, getting sympathetic with like that little pet creature that was running around with him. I wasn't crazy about how he was handled. Even though it was cool at the end, spoilers, he joins the New Guardians group and he saves Star-Lord from dying. But I just thought this was a setup that didn't pay itself off the way it should have. And the second thing, it's more minor. I thought the soundtrack wasn't as strong as the previous two.
Really? I love the soundtrack.
I like using the Earth, Wind, and Fire Reason song. There were some things I did like, but generally, I thought most of it was forgettable.
The was it Dog Days Are Here Again at the end? That was strong. Come on. Beginning on a dour note with Creep, the acoustic version by Rick.
Yeah, the Creep was good, but like I said, most of it I didn't think was memorable.
See, I liked it because, again, it wasn't relegated to a decade like the previous two films were.
Yeah.
It jumped around more. And I guess, hey, if this is my final go-round, I'm not going to stick to a decade. I'm going freewheeling with all the stuff I wanted to put. That matches the tone of the scenes. So I really enjoyed the soundtrack. This is the first noteworthy, or for me, the first time the soundtrack was more noteworthy than anything. But obviously, we both highly recommend this movie. And next, we go to something more on the Ant-Man level. Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Which kind of suffers from the same thing we were talking about with Ant-Man and the Wasp: QUANTUMANIA. It feels like there's a lot of big production thrown into this, but it has little impact other than, hey, Shazam has to fight an enemy and might have to go at it alone this time. It's not a horrible movie, but it's just like, again, like an Ant-Man scene was like, like the villains, I mean, they're dangerous, but there was nothing to them, really. I mean, other than, spoiler, one of them, kind of falling for one of the Shazams, that. So it was like, oh, this like star-crossed lovers and giving Demon Hansu something more to do. But it was like, wow, Lucy Liu's still working? It was nice to see her, but she stuck to usually her on-screen persona where you kind of knew, oh, she's going to be the bitch out of all of them. And she stuck to it. I like that they more separated them. Why does only Mary get to be the only one who looks the same in and out of Shazam uniform?
Yeah, that always should be weird.
I mean, yeah, she's hot, but still, shouldn't she kind of be altered? Because, again, if her parents are watching the news, it's like, hey, ain't that Mary? Because, I mean, come on, you transform a little girl into Megan Good. That's not fair. It's like, and I'm like, Adam Brody deserves more. Better, I mean, at least he plays the older or superhero version of the most interesting character in the film, Jack Dylan Grazer, who deserves to be more the hero than, the kid who plays, I guess, Shazam. Yeah. And I think the director knew about that because it was more like, let's stick with Zachary Levi more. And him. Though I am not going to lie, it got me in the end. There were some tears. When Shazam tries to kind of martyr themselves, it got the tears a flowing. So that's why I will say it's not the worst, but it could have been so much better. And I think it would have been served better had they waited to put it out in the summer, even though it had already been delayed from the holidays of last year. And it's never a good sign when Rachel Zegler, who plays Athena, is trying to defend herself in an interview like, I needed a job. It's like, could you wait till the movie, was on, streaming before you start saying things like that? Because, might hurt the box office. Little things like that. even though she's one of the better parts of the movie. You know, she's more noteworthy here to me than she was as Maria, you know. And it provided one of the truly funny bits of the movie. Again, spoiler alert, when at the end, Wonder Woman shows up and he's just so amazed. And then he tries to straighten his face because she's already jealous of him marveling at Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah.
That was really generally one of the few funny parts of this movie that was noteworthy. And, you know, Zachary Levi, you know, I like him as a superhero, but this just needed a better script all around. And it needed to be better thought out. And I know it's not his fault about the after credit sequence because somebody did not want to come and cameo because they were too good. So instead we get Suicide Squad recruiters, and the bit doesn't end up even being remotely funny. You know, this was another scene where if you're gonna bring back Superman, bring him back for this series so we can see his face. But wouldn't have mattered because this seems to be the ending of that DC kind of universe to a certain extent, and it's a shame because I think if James Gunn would give them a chance, they could have come up with something a little bit better. But like you said, it's kind of like Ant-Man, where it's like, oh, let's go into the comedy and then put some realistic stuff in there just to measure it out. But it just feels like a colossal blockbuster from the 90s that's big, and it doesn't need to be as big as it is.
Yeah, you know, it's a shame because I actually enjoyed the first Shazam movie. I like the idea of it being like, it's basically the movie Big, but he turns into a superhero instead of just like a regular adult, right? And I thought it had that cutesiness and playing that angle, and then the friends all becoming their own Shazams. I thought that was all cool. And it was a nice appetizer to Avengers Endgame coming out like a week later. So it was a nice little film and a breakaway from the other DC movies that went a little too dark. This film, I think it just kind of backtracked itself by, like you said, being more focused on just him as Shazam more than when he's the kid, because now the kid's getting older, so it kind of loses the mystique of a young boy turning into this adult superhero. You know, like I said, there were times I was kind of charmed by it. Rachel Ziegler, I think there's something appealing about her that, you know, I'm not saying her part was fantastic, but I thought, you know, she's watchable. She's likable in the part that she had to play, as was Jack Dylan Grazer and Adam Brody having to play, you know, the adult version of him. You know, there was something that was kind of nice about that it wasn't just the main hero getting the center of attention here. Helen Mirren, I actually didn't hate. There was something like kind of, I don't know, something likable about her, you know, I guess being like one of the daughters of Atlas that just, yeah, she's supposed to be like kind of on the wrong side and realizes the error of her ways. But I just, for some reason, because maybe I just like Helen Mirren in general.
Yeah,
I think it is. I can't find myself disliking her at all. Like when she's sitting there at that table, that picnic table with Shazam, and he's trying to tell her, like, we don't need to fight here. I don't know, just something likable about her that I just don't want to like go up against her. You know, Lucy Liu ends up being the villain and me the job. So he pretty much fulfilled the requirement. And is it just me or the mother caretaker of the kids? Is she a little too hot for that part?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was that one, the part where they had to kind of reveal themselves to her, and she's in the bedroom in like this nightgown. I'm like, I don't know if this was the right casting.
It's like,
yeah, that's a little too sultry for that role here. Like,
And it made me wonder when they came in, were they about to do it?
That's what it seemed like. This is supposed to be marketed to kids, not
exactly. It was like, and it seemed weird when she's like talking about how proud of, like, I guess Shazam she is. That's her real son and all that. It kind of seemed like more like a love thing. Like, hey, you know, I'm your woman. I love you.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be a mom. This seems weird. And this is where I will play your devil's advocate for a change. it felt like the gay thing was thrown in for the Spanish.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm gay. And like,
Yeah, buddy. Don't worry about it.
yeah, it's like, this has nothing to do with the story. But if you just want to have representation, it's cool.
But that's what I don't like when inclusion is forced like that. If the character is gay, he's just gay. We don't have to address this shit.
I agree. It's, at least, especially here, that's where it just felt forced, you
Yeah.
know. But other than that, like I said, it's an okay movie. It belongs on streaming. That's where you should watch it, you know. It doesn't have the charm of the first one,
Right.
but it's okay. But again, it strangely has this rushed feeling, even though it's been held back for so long.
Well, it was doomed by two things. The Rock, with his whole attitude that he didn't want to cross Black Adam over, and the fact that James Gunn announced his plan, and clearly they were not going to follow up on this. So it's like the audience said, why even bother?
True. And so it was damned already going
Yeah.
in. And poor Lucy Liu. She has to go find, hopefully, a good job. She is a good actress. I just get tired of her always playing the villain. I like it when she surprisingly plays, you know, a nice or a good character.
Yeah. Well, and poor Rachel Ziegler. I mean, she should be doing better work.
I think she will. Just give her time. It's just what works against her is she's in her 20s, but she still has that teen look.
All I want from her is just, please do a movie with Brooke Adams.
Why?
They are like identical twins. It's not even funny.
I would see that more from Jenna Ortega and Brooke Adams than I would.
Hey, I can see them do a movie together.
Yeah, hey, they could do a Charmed reboot altogether.
What if they put her in the Beetlejuice sequel as like the ghost of Gina Davis's daughter?
Jeez, talk about dark. Jeez. I'm like, no. Hey, Jenna Ortega's already dealing with enough getting publicly shamed for smoking by her mother.
Yeah, well, look how tiny she is.
Well, again, but see, she's one of those people, at least she's only 19 and still looks like a teenager. Whereas Rachel Ziegler is older and still looks like a teenager, and it kind of limits her. So unless she's going to be in like a Do Revenge movie, you know, for Netflix, she's kind of stuck, you know? Because again, even when we saw West Side Story, it's like, she still seems mad young for somebody going through this romance where it looks like Tony's character is more molesting a 14-year-old girl.
Hence the actor who played him.
I mean, he has his own personal problems. Yeah. And so we're not going to go there. But like I said, like you said, I think she definitely has a future. Yeah. I hope she just gets roles that are better and she doesn't have to defend the movie. She doesn't have to defend herself when the movie is out. By saying, hey, I needed a job, okay? And it's not like, again, it's not like she was...
I made a movie that bombed. It was called The Thing.
It's not like she was in a Kevin Hart movie where she has to defend herself. You know, like...
Or Yui Ball movie.
Oh, everybody who's in there just should say, this is obviously a paycheck job. Just be like Helen Mirren. You know, hey, I'm not going to defend it. I'm not going to go against it. I took the role. I did what I could with it. I went home. You know, enough said. But nobody's seeking out Helen Mirren. And Helen Mirren, smartly, was born before Twitter, so she doesn't get on it. So if anybody's bad-mouthing her, she's like, I don't know what the hell that is.
You don't fucking tell her. Yeah, but needs to do more. I was going to say you should do more films, but probably not.
Well, he did that movie where Joe Pesci played her husband. And that's
the point.
So no. I think Taylor Hackford kind of shot himself in the foot with that movie. So that's why we don't get more Taylor Hackford movies. And so, hey, he's got a wife who's working. He's got a respectable career before that. So we move on to our final review. And I'm going to make the bold statement, one of the best movies I've seen this year. And that is surprisingly Air, directed by that man, Mr. Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck. Yeah, I knew it got critically acclaimed, but I was not prepared for Affleck to bring his A game in the directing on this film. This film reminded me of those films from the 1970s where the script is tight, the cast is tight, even the direction is tight. The only fault of the movie is his overabundance of wanting to remind us it's the 1980s. It's like, we get it. Not every time you go to a new scene does there need to be a soundtrack cut of a 1980s thing, or taking us into a 7-Eleven that shows all the snack foods used to look like. All that was missing was, since Matt Damon's character is heavy, is when he goes to Michael Jordan's parents' house, is for him to stop by in McDonald's and have the styrofoam container for his food. But I mean, everybody brung his A game. Surprisingly, if anybody gives kind of the loosest or weakest performance, it's Affleck as Phil Knight, with his zen and weird hairstyle and weird shots of showing him walking and running. We get it. We didn't need that many scenes of that. But I mean, Chris Tucker is good in his supporting role. Marlon Wayans in his one scene is good. And come on, I know it's going to be on the highlight reel for the Oscars next year, and probably 50,000 memes or reels will be made of it. But the speech Matt Damon gives, when he's trying to tell Michael Jordan why they should choose the company, that is going to be a future classic monologue that you as a filmmaker, you're going to see a bunch of young actors come and give that, and as their audition piece. That is how good this movie is. And I'm not necessarily Affleck's biggest fan, but I'm even going to say this might be his best directed movie to me, because it's all about simplicity. It isn't, the town you had the roguish, you had the heist. Here, he's dealing with people in a room talking to each other like adults and dealing with the future of this company and how this can change and how this can destroy. And I just thought this is an adult level movie that Affleck needs to keep making, because I'm not a big fan of Argo. And I like Gone Baby Gone. It's a good debut, but this to me is his strongest. He has an all-star cast, but it's not like obnoxiously so with Argo. And you have Alan Arkin and John Goodman. Chris Messina is memorable. I loved his character and the thorough line of his character at the end. Even that guy who I've seen a 50 million things, who has kind of a lisp when he talks and is the shoe designer. It worked for his delivery, worked for his character. Everything works, and we never see Michael Jordan's face. We only see like the body, and that worked. And fucking Jay Mohr is. I was like, whoa, that's what happens when you get divorced. I'm like, whoa, I know that. Why is he German in this movie? I like those little jokes, even though they're like competing about like how Converse, as a guy who started the company, his name is Adolf, and was a Nazi. That back and forth between him and Chris Messina. I'm just like, I don't know if he's going to get Best Actor nomination, but this is the first lively and lived-in performance I feel like we've seen from Matt Damon in quite a while. And so, and Viola Davis, I mean, she's great in everything she does. If it wasn't her, I'm sure it would have been Angela Bassett, But her powerful speeches and, her determination. And even when he's making the speech, and even the characters don't know it, but the fates of some of them in the future, like his father, and how that's intermixed into the speech, I thought that was amazing. And so I highly recommend. I love this movie. And finally, Jason Bateman is in a film where he can bring his game and it works well. And so obviously, I love this movie. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree on all points. I thought it was fantastic. And, Chris Tucker really impressed the hell out of me. He's, a little heavier now, but, the role actually fit what was needed for that particular guy. There was definitely a lot that I learned. And this is the thing that I like with certain biopics is when you learn stuff you don't know about. Just how Nike was not really a basketball company. They mostly focused on running shoes and tennis shoes and things like that. Converse had the upper hand with the NBA before Jordan came along. And, just knowing all the key players, how the Jumpman logo was made, things like that I think really made it fascinating to show the context of that time and why it was so important for Jordan to go with Nike over any other shoe company, how that revolutionized the NBA in general, and maybe even sports in general. I agree with you about the speech. I think maybe it's the only part where it felt like they were acting a little too much. Like it came off like an acting performance more than just like letting it flow naturally. But I liked the speech. I liked how it was written. So I'm not going to completely knock it off its feet or anything like that. There might have been one little inaccuracy just based on the Last Dance documentary, which I also really highly recommend, about the Chicago Bulls and all the championships they won, and of course about Michael Jordan's career. But the movie plays it where there was an entire bidding war to get Jordan to sign with Converse, Adidas, and the other companies, Reebok. But I think in reality, according to the Last Dance documentary, Converse didn't want Jordan because they didn't think he was in the same league as Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. So they did not want him part of their lineup of stars that were endorsing the Converse weapons shoe. That was like their big thing back then, during the height of like the Bird Magic rivalry. So that may be the one thing that they got a little bit wrong, and maybe some other small things here and there. But generally, I think it was on point. And I believe Jordan, and I think his mother is still alive, they had some input on the film itself. So they made sure like they weren't going to do any kind of phoniness or change things that were going to make it feel like it was inauthentic. I think honestly, I would highly recommend this over the show Winning Time, because I think Winning Time gets a little too carried away with its breaking the fourth wall style. And even that has a lot of inaccuracies in there because they're trying to make it so in-depth, and the way they portray the Lakers in those early days is almost like criminal, given who these icons are, especially Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, making him a complete asshole.
I don't know. There's two more notes I want to make on this film. I'll admit, when I first heard about this film, I was a naysayer, and it's not because of Affleck, but I'm like, is this what movies are coming to? We're watching business deals made into movies as entertainment, and I will be the first one. I will take it back. They found a way to actually make it into a powerful product. But also, this film is also kind of a preview of the business plan Ben Affleck and Matt Damon have as they're now starting their own studio for films, and the mandates that they are seeking in making the films. So, it works on dual levels. And I hope it is a success, more of this, less hypnotic, or, well, I didn't see the last duel, so I can't say anything bad about it. I still have to watch it. But, I give Ben Affleck mad respect after this movie. He's always been just an interesting actor to me, because he always feels like an actor out of place at times. And like, even he feels it maybe sometimes. And here is where I feel like he's definitely confident. And as much news is, reported about him because of his marriage, I think this is one that he can stand behind where, say what you want about his relationship, say what you want about, the sad memes of him and his love of Dunkin' Donuts, say
he's a Boston guy.
Yeah, and his wavering bad impersonation of the Boston accent at times in like Dunkin' Donuts commercials. But here he's rock solid. This, he has something solid. This, the town, Gone Baby Gone, he can stand behind and be like, you know what? He's got talent. Argo, not the biggest fan. But I definitely highly recommend this. And, I eat crow. thinking that this was going to be bad. I'm hoping the same thing for Asteroid City by Wes Anderson, because I'm not wowed by the trailer, but it's getting great word of mouth. So we'll see. And anything else you want to say about Air?
Nah, I highly recommend it.
As do I. So that ends this week's business. But as you know, we always have plenty of unfinished business. But I must ask you, have you seen Addams Family Values? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. And Andre, what movie would you recommend for the people?
Have you seen the 1984 film Against All Odds with Jeff Bridges and James Woods and Rachel Ward? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome and has a great soundtrack.
Even though James Woods, when he was acceptable, was in it. That is it for this week. We will see you next time.